Hello, welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. We are going to be talking about Windows 11 and the changes to Microsoft Teams and what that means. We're going to talk through that because it's kind of interesting to developers, I think, because there's a lot of bound up development decisions that kind of have taken place inside the Teams team to get to this point. I think that would be interesting to talk through. But there's some other things to talk about first, so let's get into it. All right, the first thing to cover is a blog by the Microsoft Graph development team about a breaking change. So this might affect you if you are using the Microsoft Graph API to get information about mailboxes in Outlook, specifically the userPurpose endpoint. So there's a userPurpose endpoint you can call against a mailbox to figure out what it's for. Is it a mailbox for a single user? Is it a mailbox for a group? Is it a mailbox for a conference room, or even a bit of kit or something? So that's the thing you can do today. It's in beta, it's not in GA, and this is one of the reasons these changes happen. So Microsoft are allowed to and do make changes to beta endpoints, and they make them quite often, and they make them often with very short notice. So this is one of those things. They're going to make a big change to the userPurpose API. In fact, they're going to take it offline whilst they work on it. Right, so really big change. And so, they're going to take it offline, and they're going to do that on August 24th. So 2 months' time. They're going to take it offline. They are going to give you a temporary workaround that you can use, and then that's going to be for 3 months, and then they're going to go back to the original one, and then they're going to turn off the temporary solution after 2 months. So you do have some options, but you also need to make sure you are keeping track of dates and times and what's going on, because the workaround is going to be temporary, and they're really clear about that. If you want to go and use the temporary thing whilst we're working on the main thing, that's fine. It's not forever. It is definitely temporary. So there's a blog post. Let me show you the blog post. So this is the, this is the endpoint here, the mailbox settings / userPurpose. Now this is the temporary one, the V2. The one you need to check to see if you're using is user / mailbox settings / userPurpose. After August 24th, you are going to get this bad request error, okay? Because it is in maintenance mode. There's an interesting comment here. We would remind developers we don't encourage usage of beta APIs in production apps. Now, that's something I say quite a lot. If it's in beta, you shouldn't be using it in production. Reality is, I know lots of people do run beta APIs in production because you really need that functionality. It's the only way to get it today. It's not in the GA branch, and it's been in beta for ages. And I get it. We all do the same. It's a risky judgment call, right? So if it's right for your industry, if it's right for your organization, for your product, whatever else it is, it's a calculated risk. But Microsoft will not support you in it if you have any problems, and things like this might happen. And this is kind of the flip side of you being kind of on the new stuff, is that it might change. And at least this way, it's going to be offline for 3 months. Microsoft are giving you a workaround. So the temporary workaround is that there's a V2. So this is kind of an odd way to do workarounds. I feel like maybe, I don't know, it feels a bit hacky, but whatever. So there's a / userPurpose V2. That gives exactly the same functionality as the current userPurpose API that you know and love. So you can flip to using that whilst they're working on the new thing, and then go back to when they're ready and they say that the new one is back online, we can go back to using that. So worth bearing in mind, worth considering. If you're currently using this, then you will want to kind of move on to the V2. I don't think the V2 one is available today. I'm not sure what happens if you load it. Maybe it is there. It's giving a authentication request. So I feel like the V2 might actually be around today. So you could probably cut over to the V2 one already. If that's useful, and then you don't have to worry about it until November time or something, when they're ready to move back, and then they'll tell you we're going to make the V2 one go away, and then you can move back to the original updated version. So good for you to know if you are using the userPurpose API. All right, let's talk about that big announcement yesterday. I'm not going to go into all the detail about Windows 11. You can get that from elsewhere, lots and lots of detail, kind of interesting. we can debate it at length. The bit I found really interesting, the bit for me that was interesting, was two things. The first was the integration of Microsoft Teams into Windows, but actually even more interesting was some of the stuff that got talked about after that got picked up by Brad Sams, and then also Tom Arbuthnot blogged about it because kind of he picked up on what Brad had written, and that's a Twitter kind of conversation that happened by Rish Tandon. So Rish Tandon, CVP of Engineering at Teams, so kind of head of engineering at Teams, I guess, in kind of non-Microsoft speak. And yeah, he said some really interesting things. Let me show you his tweet. Let me show you his tweet. So this is the call out to the Verge blog post, but actually more interesting was some of his comments afterwards. So with this change, we're taking a major step in Microsoft Teams architecture, moving away from Electron to Edge WebView2. Teams will continue to remain a hybrid app, but now it will be powered by Edge. Angular is gone, 100% React.js. So there's a lot to take in there. So let's do the easy one first. So we've known for a while that Microsoft have been moving away from Angular and towards React. And it's not been a kind of secret, and they've been doing that in parts and in pieces. Kind of going through. I think what Rish means, so there's a couple of different ways to interpret what he's saying. The first possible way, which I don't think is the case, is that in all of Teams, in all the clients, everything is 100% React. I don't think we're at that point. I think what he's talking about is the new stuff that's living on Windows 11. It looks like a new kind of iteration of Teams, if you like. Maybe it's a new client, maybe it's new code, not really sure. But I imagine all those pieces are 100% React. The other interesting thing is that it's not Electron. It is WebView2. So what is WebView2? If you've kind of not been paying attention, it's basically like Electron, but built by Microsoft, not by someone else. So if you remember, Electron came from GitHub prior to Microsoft's acquisition of GitHub, and Microsoft were already using it. It's a good container for web applications that then make them available on desktop in desktop clients. Microsoft have been working on something similar called WebView2 to replace the old WebView, which was what you used before back in the day, and it was like the Internet Explorer rendering engine. This WebView2 uses the Chromium rendering engine, so really similar in a way to Electron. The interesting thing about WebView2 is that it's only supported on Windows machines. Right now there is no support for Mac, and there's no support for kind of Linux machines as well. So I guess right now that's not a problem, because this kind of version that we're seeing inside the Windows 11 client looks different. It looks like an integrated version or a cut down version. It's unclear whether it is the full Teams experience, whether it's just for personal teams. It's unclear whether it's just chat and calling, whether it's also going to be apps and teams and channels and all those other things that we love Teams for. But right now, that's kind of where it's at. It's kind of got me thinking, well, if so much engineering effort has gone into this new thing, the new version of Teams, and that's the one that's built into Windows 11 and kind of ships with Windows 11, is deeply integrated in Windows 11, over time, is that going to be the only version of Teams? And Teams as a standalone client will stop being that, really. It just kind of, the version that you see in Windows 11 will be the only version you have. You won't have two versions. And if that's the case, well, what does that mean? If that's going to be on WebView2, what does that mean for Macs? And what does it mean for Linux? Here's what I think. I think probably yes. I think that probably is going to be the case, and it won't work for Mac and it won't work for Linux. But why? Why is that a problem? Why is that not a problem? Well, if you think about what Teams has become, it's a web application. The fact that you can consume it inside WebView2 or Electron is kind of just a nicety of packaging, really. Like, there is no difference really to you running Teams in the browser. There's a couple of things that are different, but not really anymore. So the Microsoft's get out clause could always be, well, just run it in the browser, it will work in the browser. For Apple and for Macs, well, actually, you can also run iPad and iPhone iOS applications you can run in Macs now. So that's another get out clause. Linux less so, although the web experience is good. You can run it in Chrome. It's all good. Will they keep the Electron version around just for Linux users? I don't think so. I don't see it happening. I think they'll kind of get rid of it. It'll kind of maybe continue to work for a while. I don't know what percentage of Teams users are on Linux. I have to feel like it's probably not very many, but I've got no kind of context there, really. I don't really know. I think it'd be interesting to see how they kind of navigate that one. The other thing, of course, is that we don't know whether or not WebView2 will come to Mac and Linux in a kind of near time frame. It might be because obviously the Microsoft Teams team have inside knowledge, like Rish has that inside knowledge of what the WebView team are doing. So he might know that, oh yeah, well, by the time like we move everything over and everything's on the WebView2 version, there'll be support for it anyway, so it doesn't matter. So interesting. So I think that the version we're seeing in Windows 11, I think that will become the only version of Teams, and we won't have the fat client. I think the inbuilt one will slowly kind of get more and more features. It will be the one where all the engineering effort goes. It'll be the 100% React.js one. But don't know, might be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. Kind of interesting. But those are the interesting things for me to come out of yesterday's announcement. I mean, there's lots and lots of other things that are of interest to developers around Windows 11, such as the ability to be able to load Android apps from the Windows Store, which I think is kind of really interesting. Kind of smart move as well, I think. Rather than trying to like own the App Store experience fully, partnering with Amazon as well is kind of a smart move, I think, to very quickly get a large body of applications up and running. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Like, I went back and had a look at the WebView2 stuff and some of the announcements, and I didn't cover this at the time because I don't think I even knew about it at the time. But look at this blog post announcing Microsoft Edge WebView2 general availability. So October last year. So October 2020. A whole blog post talking about WebView2. Now, this kind of passed me by at the time. I would like to think, I'm not sure this is true, I'm going to say though, if I'd read this blog post back in October, I feel like I might have put two and two together and started to think that maybe Teams would get rewritten in WebView2 away from Electron, and made that jump. But who knows, like hindsight's a brilliant thing, isn't it? So this is kind of really interesting to go back and read now, and I think this is worth a watch. This video is worth watching. This is worth reading through just to understand a bit more about this container that Teams is going to go into, understand the distribution models, understand how updates happen, and what it all looks like. This is currently in use today. So the Room Finder in Outlook uses WebView2 under the hood. So if you've used the Room Finder, then you're already using WebView2 whether you knew it or not. So this is interesting. So I don't have any real world experience writing Electron applications. If you do, let me know. Are you moving over to WebView2 now? Is this part of your kind of development strategy to move away from Electron in line with Microsoft? What are the reasons for that? Is it performance? Is it reliability? What is it? Is it functionality? Do you see no reason to move to WebView2? Are there reasons you can't move to WebView2? Let me know, because it's kind of interesting, and I don't have loads and loads of kind of knowledge in this area. All right, finally, we've got one thing to leave you with before we go for the weekend, and this is for you if you want to think about kind of speaking at a conference again. Maybe it's been a little while since any of us have spoken at an in-person conference, but they're starting up again. We're starting to think about them, starting to plan for them. And maybe you've not done any speaking at a conference, but actually you think, maybe that sounds interesting. I'd like to get involved. I'd like to try it. I'd like to understand what it's about. Maybe I'm not sure if I'm ready or not, but I just want to kind of test the water a little bit. Well, this is a really nice conference coming up in October in the UK. And so if you're UK based, this is probably more for you than anyone else right now, because it's really, being honest, like it's really hard right now to plan for anything outside the UK with travel and everything like that right now. So if you're in the UK and you're a developer on the Microsoft 365 stack or the Azure stack, it doesn't have to be Teams. It can be all of Microsoft 365, all of Azure, whatever it is you're into. But you're into development and you want to talk about that stuff and showcase what you've been doing for the last year and a half whilst we've all been stuck at home, and the things you've made and the things you've learnt, there's a conference coming up for you, and it's got a dedicated track for development and extensibility. And the call for speaker is open now. So let me show you this blog post that I wrote in the week. So it's called South Coast Summit. It's down in the south of England. It's in October, and call for sessions is open right now. So it's going to be free to attend, I think. So you can go here, submit your session, do some Googling around writing a really good title and abstract, have a think about the talk you want to build and want to put together. If you if you've never put a talk together before and you've never done a talk before and you just want to talk to someone about it, ping me on Twitter. We'll set something up. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. I think we should have more representation and more speaking by development at tech conferences. I don't think there's enough. I get that it's not necessarily a skill set that lots of developers feel is really important, but I think it is really important. I think that, you know, being able to kind of talk to your peers and present information and teach people, I think is really important. So yeah, give it a go. Why not? You know, if you've never done any talking before, never done any speaking before, give it a try. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to learn stuff. It's a great way to learn new technology as well, is to sign up for a talk about it. You know, there is no better incentive to go and learn something really, really well than having to give a presentation about it. Or if you've got something you already know really well and you kind of want the comfort factor, that's great too, because, you know, if you're the expert on this thing, loads of other people can learn from you as well. So lots and lots of options there. So if that sounds interesting, get involved, sign up for the speakers, for the sessions, and yeah, see how it goes. And great, best of luck if you do. All right, that's everything from me. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing, and I will speak to you again next time.